Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast. Today, we are focusing on a really interesting high-growth player, one that sits right at that intersection of medicine and technology, Tempus AI. This is quite the company. They're leveraging these massive proprietary data sets and AI to try and transform diagnostics, especially in oncology. So the big question guiding our conversation today, it's pretty straightforward, is Tempus AI a good time to buy right now? We've pulled together sources looking at their financials, the stock's technical performance, the future outlook, really trying to give you the full picture of what's going on with this, well, complicated stock.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating one. It's almost a classic investing paradox, isn't it? You've got this explosive market momentum driven by, genuine innovation and a real technological edge. But that's heavily tempered by some pretty significant fundamental financial concerns. We're talking debt, profitability, or lack thereof. So what we'll try to do is synthesize the key nuggets from the analysis, help you maybe separate that impressive tech story from what is, frankly, a high investment risk.
All right, sounds good. And before we really dive into the details, just a quick reminder, please hit subscribe if you haven't already, like this discussion if you find it valuable, and definitely leave us a comment below. And hey, if there's another company you'd like us to take a look at, maybe another high growth tech name or something completely different, drop that suggestion in the comments too. We do read them. All right, let's start at the beginning then. Tempus AI, clearly it's more than just your average diagnostics lab. What exactly is their core function, and why has the market been rewarding them so phenomenally lately compared to their peers?
Well, at its heart, Tempus AI is really a data company. That's the key. They operate using these proprietary, anonymized clinical and molecular data sets. Think genomics, diagnostics data, treatment outcomes, huge amounts of information. And then they apply their AI-powered analytics to pull insights from it all. This really positions them strongly in fields like genomics and oncology, giving doctors and pharmaceutical researchers insights they can actually use. And what's really fascinating is seeing how that tech edge translates, or seems to translate, into market performance. Over the past year, Tempus AI returned a stunning 55.1%. Just think about that.
Wow, 55%.
Yeah, and now compare that. The broader U.S. market, it returned about 18.5% in the same time frame. And the U.S. life sciences industry, that was actually down 22.3%.
Down 22%. So Tempus is up 55 while the sector's down 22.
Exactly. That kind of massive outperformance tells you investors are making a huge bet. They're betting on the value of Tempus's intellectual property, their data platform. Something special there.
That degree of outperformance, especially in a sector that's struggling, that is really compelling. But, innovation like that costs money. It suggests they're burning through capital pretty aggressively to expand. And here's where it gets interesting on the product side too, right? It seems like Tempus AI is strategically trying to move beyond just its original oncology focus. Can we highlight maybe a couple of key recent milestones, say from the last 3 months or so, that show this expansion?
Absolutely. And you're right, they are actively diversifying. It's a smart move. So back in July 2025, they got a pretty significant regulatory nod from the FDA. It was 510K clearance for their AI-powered ECG tool, specifically the ECG Low EF software.
Okay, ECG. So moving into cardiology, why is that 510K clearance such a big deal?
Well, it's crucial because getting that 510K clearance fundamentally shifts things. It takes what might have been seen as just a data product or research tool and moves it into the realm of a regulated medical device, something doctors can actually use in clinical practice, potentially get reimbursed for. It's basically their pathway toward generating more predictable, established healthcare revenue streams outside of just pure R&D partnerships. It diversifies away from only oncology research deals.
Got it. That's a major step towards, recurring revenue in cardiology and digital health. What else happened this summer that maybe validates their whole data monetization model?
Also this past summer, they locked down a very strategic partnership. It was with AstraZeneca and Pathos AI. And the goal, to build the world's largest oncology foundation model.
The world's largest. That sounds ambitious.
It is. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, this deal, it really speaks volumes. It validates their proprietary data sets as these foundational assets that major pharmaceutical companies like AstraZeneca are willing to pay top dollar just to access and build upon. It basically proves their data engine is a valuable commodity in itself.
Okay, so undeniable tech success, really high growth, impressive returns beating the market. But like you alluded to earlier, that innovation, it comes with a hefty price tag. Let's switch gears and pull up the financials. Let's look at the quarter ending June 30, 2025, and see what the bill looks like. What's the good news in the numbers that's fueling all this investor enthusiasm?
Right, the numbers. Well, the first piece of good news is definitely the revenue momentum. It's strong. Trailing 12 months revenue, that's TTM, it's knocking on the door of $1 billion. $951.98 million to be exact.
Almost $1 billion in revenue.
Yeah. And crucially, the gross margin looks pretty robust too. It's 60.73%. That translates to about $578 million in gross profit.
Okay, 60% gross margin. That's healthy. It suggests their core business model, selling the data analytics, the diagnostics, it's structurally sound, right? Highly scalable. They're not just selling some low-margin commodity.
Exactly. That high gross margin is definitely a positive sign about the underlying business economics.
But we know running an AI development company, maintaining massive data centers, chasing complex regulatory approvals like that FDA clearance, that stuff is expensive. So despite that stellar 60% gross margin, there must be a pretty significant burn rate happening somewhere between gross profit and the bottom line. How does it actually look down there?
And that raises the really important question about cash management sustainability. Despite that excellent gross margin, the company is still reporting a very substantial net loss. For the TTM period, it's minus $199.73 million.
Wow, nearly $200 million loss.
Yeah, and that translates to an earnings per share, or EPS, of negative $1.15. Now, to be fair, in their Q2 2025 earnings release, they did report narrowing the adjusted loss per share to negative $0.24. But that's adjusted. On a standard accounting basis, GAAP basis, they are definitely not profitable yet.
That is a massive loss, almost $200 million, and quite a gap from the $578 million in gross profit.
Yeah.
Where's all that money going? Is it mostly R&D because they have to keep innovating? Or are we seeing maybe bloat in selling general administrative costs, SG&A?
Well, the analysis suggests the majority of that loss is driven by pretty aggressive investment in R&D and just scaling the platform. That includes high costs for talent. AI experts aren't cheap, and the cloud computing infrastructure needed to handle all that data. But this ongoing negative cash flow forces them into that classic growth company dilemma. How do you fund the scale when you're not generating cash internally?
Right, which usually means either raising more equity or taking on debt.
Exactly. And that brings us right to the balance sheet risk factor that kind of stands out like a sore thumb here. The debt. The high debt burden presents a really serious long-term risk that, frankly, investors absolutely cannot ignore with this company. Their debt-to-equity ratio is extremely high. It's sitting at 257.8%.
Okay, 257.8%. Can you break that down? What does that practically mean for a company like Tempus? 2.5 times more debt than equity.
Yeah, basically. It means they have 2.5 times more liabilities than shareholder capital backing the business. And the practical implication. Especially for a high-growth company that's still losing nearly $200 million a year, it means they were walking a tightrope. Analysts are generally expecting them to continue posting net losses, at least in the near term. So with that high debt level and no internal cash generation, the company becomes highly sensitive. Sensitive to any slowdown in that revenue growth we talked about, or maybe even more critically, sensitive to any tightening in the capital markets. If their access to cheap funding dries up,
Then they're stuck.
pretty much, they'd be forced to either drastically slow down their R&D spending, which would really damage the whole innovation story the stock is built on, or they'd have to pursue potentially dilutive equity financing, which punishes current shareholders by watering down their stake. It really does feel like a venture capital kind of gamble playing out in the public markets.
That's a great way to put it. A financial high-wire act. Great growth, but really high risk.
Okay, so let's see how the stock price itself is reflecting this split personality, this tension between innovation and financial instability.
Right. So as of September 23rd, 2025, the stock price was $85.87. And technically speaking, the stock is clearly showing recent upside momentum. It's trading comfortably above its key moving averages. Specifically, it's above both the 50-day simple moving average and the 200-day simple moving average. That tells you momentum traders, short-term investors, they've been very interested lately.
Okay, momentum looks strong currently, but is it sustainable? Especially given how aggressively the price has already run up this year, that 55% gain we mentioned. Well, there are definitely some cautionary signs, particularly for shorter-term traders. If we look at the 14-day relative strength index, the RSI, that's a measure of price movement speed and change, it's currently at 60.81.
60.81, what does that signal?
Well, It's not in what you'd call dangerously overbought territory, which is usually considered above 70, but it is, let's say, mildly elevated. A reading like that could tempt some of those short-term traders who've ridden the recent wave up to maybe lock in their gains, which could potentially trigger a pullback in the price. And another thing, the average weekly volatility is 9.2%.
9% a week. That's pretty jumpy.
It is. Now, look, we expect volatility in growth tech, but that level is quite high for your average, maybe more conservative investor. This isn't really a set-it-and-forget-it kind of stock. It likely requires pretty constant monitoring.
Okay, now here's where it gets, for me anyway, really interesting. We've got this high recent price momentum, stock trading near $86. Yet the analyst consensus seems to be telling a bit of a different story, doesn't it? Even with an overall consensus rating of buy, what are the actual price targets saying about institutional confidence at this level?
Yeah, that divergence is potentially the biggest red flag here for fundamental investors. The median analyst price target is $70.
$70, but the stock's at $85.87.
Exactly. The median target is significantly below the current trading price. Now, individual targets vary, of course. They range from $68, that was from Morgan Stanley, up to $90 from H.C. Wainwright. But that median at $70 is telling.
So the big institutions, the analysts covering the stock, they're essentially saying, look, we believe in the company's technology, the long-term story maybe, but the current market price, maybe driven by retail enthusiasm, has already priced out any reasonable return from here. Is that a fair read?
I think that's a very fair interpretation. It definitely suggests institutional skepticism about further significant upside from this current valuation level. Put another way, the current price around $86 seems to already reflect incredibly optimistic growth expectations continuing and assumes minimal execution risk going forward. That $70 median target implies that analysts see potentially significant downside risk if the company fails to execute absolutely flawlessly on its path towards eventual profitability.
Okay, execution is key then. So let's look forward maybe over the next 3 months or so. What specific corporate updates, sector events, or financial disclosures could potentially impact the stock either for the better or worse?
Well, the most significant near-term event is almost certainly going to be their Q3 2025 earnings report. That's likely due around November 7th. And there are two critical things everyone will be watching there. First, obviously, continued high revenue growth. They need to keep that narrative alive. But second, and maybe even more critically this time, is visible progress in narrowing those operating losses we discussed. Especially now, following the implementation of those major partnerships like the AstraZeneca deal.
Right. They need to show that the big spending on R&D and partnerships is actually starting to pay off on the bottom line, or at least moving in that direction.
Precisely. They need to demonstrate a clearer path to actually making money from all this innovation. Some other, maybe less direct near-term events. There's potential inclusion in the major ETF rebalance around October 15th. That could boost liquidity and maybe drive some passive institutional buying. And then you sometimes see scheduled institutional investor buying activity around December 1st, which can also add to market visibility.
Got it. So earnings are the big one. Now, if we zoom out again, connect this back to the bigger picture, beyond the debt load, beyond the net loss, which are obviously huge risks, what are the other major risk factors that you think listeners really need to keep front of mind when they're assessing the long-term viability here?
Yeah, beyond the financial structure, which is, let's be honest, pretty precarious.
Yeah.
There are reputation risks to consider. We probably can't ignore that critical short report that surfaced earlier in the year. Now, short reports always need to be taken with a grain of salt, but that specific report did raise some pointed questions about Tempus's revenue composition, like how reliant they might be on just a few key pharma partners, and also some questions around governance. That kind of criticism, even if disputed, it still kind of shadows the company. It means management has to maintain extreme transparency and really stay focused on execution to rebuild full confidence.
That makes sense. Any other broad risks?
And then, just zooming out even further, the whole sector itself, biotech, life sciences, AI, and healthcare, it carries inherently high volatility. That's due not only to the technology risk, will the AI actually deliver consistently, but also to the highly regulated and often unpredictable nature of FDA approvals, reimbursement decisions, things like that. Their new cardiology software, for example, its success depends entirely on navigating that continuous regulatory pathway successfully. Any hiccup there could be a major setback.
Okay, so let's try to pull this all together. We've covered a lot. Strong tech innovation, definitely market-beating returns recently, robust gross margins, but also nearly $1 billion in TTM revenue wiped out by a $200 million net loss, and this, frankly, crippling debt-to-equity ratio of over 250%. What does this all mean for someone listening right now, maybe considering making a move on Tempus AI?
Well, if you synthesize everything from the sources, the overall rating seems to land somewhere around a 5 out of 10, maybe slap bang in the middle. It really is the definition of a high-growth narrative. It's backed by strong revenue growth and valuable intellectual property, no doubt about that, but it's fundamentally weakened by those persistent losses and that really severe debt load. And it seems the current share price already reflects very, very optimistic growth expectations being met.
So the analysis seems to strongly suggest this stock, right now at least, might be better suited for short-term trading. Maybe someone playing momentum or volatility rather than being a foundational long-term investment. Unless, of course, those financial fundamentals drastically improve. It sounds like the market is demanding absolutely flawless execution from this management team to justify keeping the stock price up near $86.
I think that's right. And maybe that raises the important question for you, the listener, to really consider here. Is this stock truly a 5-10 overall? Or is it perhaps more like a 10-10 for a specific type of trader, someone comfortable with high volatility and maybe closer to a 0-10 for a long-term fundamental investor right now? And thinking about that, what specific measurable event would need to happen to change your view? Would it be a clear, believable path to GAAP profitability? Or maybe a significant sustained reduction in that 257.8% debt-to-equity ratio? What would it take for you to see this shift from a high-risk momentum trade to maybe a solid long-term buy, justifying that current price? Something to mull over.
That's a great question to leave our listeners with. We certainly hope this analysis has provided some clarity and maybe some actionable knowledge for you. Thank you so much for joining us for this look at the material on Tempus AI. We'll be back soon with more insights.